At Maplewood Zoo in Ontario, Canada, there lived an old bobcat named Speedo. He had been a resident of the zoo since he was just a kitten, having been rescued after being found injured near a hiking trail in the Rockies. Over nearly 15 years, Speedo became a quiet and graceful presence behind the glass of his modest enclosure. His once bright amber eyes had dulled with age, and his steps had grown slower. The zookeepers noticed changes in Speedo's behavior. He no longer paced as he used to. His appetite had decreased, and he stopped climbing the high platforms that had once allowed him to enjoy a view of the outside world. Dr. Elliott, the senior veterinarian at the zoo, was the first to suggest that Speedo might benefit from a change of environment. While the team took great pride in caring for their animals, they all recognized that no concrete and steel enclosure could truly replicate the vast wild that a bobcat like Speedo belonged to. He needed calmness, not crowds, and the sounds of rustling leaves instead of vending machines. After a series of discussions, Mr. Nolan, the zoo director, decided to reach out to protected wilderness reserves across Canada. Weeks passed without any solid leads, as many sanctuaries were at capacity or focused on different species. Then, a call came from Clearwater Wildlife Reserve, located deep in the boreal forests of British Columbia. This sanctuary was known for its spacious, semi-wild habitats and its commitment to caring for elderly or injured predators who could not fully return to the wild. They had room for Speedo and experience with older solitary animals like him. However, the logistics of moving Speedo were complicated. He had never traveled far, and the distance from Ontario to British Columbia was significant. Yet the team felt it was the right decision to make. They prepared Speedo with gentle handling and plenty of patience. Ranger Lucas from Clearwater even flew in days in advance to spend time near Speedo, allowing the bobcat to get accustomed to his scent and voice. On the morning of the journey, the air was cool, and a light mist hung over the zoo grounds. Speedo hesitated slightly as he stepped into the transport cage, but showed no signs of panic. As the truck pulled out, the zoo staff gathered silently, some waving goodbye while others simply watched. Inside the transport cage, Speedo nestled in a bed of straw, curiously peering through the small mesh window as he embarked on a new chapter in his life. The sounds of Maplewood Zoo gradually faded as Lucas's journey unfolded over 2 days. He traveled through winding highways, passing towns, lakes, and forests that stretched endlessly beyond the horizon. Seated beside the driver, he frequently checked the speedometer and made quiet notes. When they finally reached Clearwater, it was early morning. A fog clung to the tall pine trees, and the air was filled with the earthy scent of moss and fresh soil. Clearwater was truly different from any place Speedo had known. Instead of a cage, the space prepared for him was a large, enclosed area resembling natural terrain, complete with trees, rocks, and small hills. Nearby, a cabin served as the caretaker's post, allowing Lucas to monitor Speedo from a distance. The only alteration to the environment was a small shelter filled with straw, providing warmth for the colder nights. As Speedo cautiously stepped into his new habitat, the soft soil cushioned his paws. The wind carried the enticing scents of real trees and distant water, causing his ears to twitch. In that moment, the older bobcat mirrored a younger version of himself, curiosity igniting a spark in his eyes. Lucas observed from afar, ensuring he didn't intrude. Over the following days, he visited regularly, bringing food and checking on Speedo's breathing and movements, making sure there were no hidden injuries or signs of illness. Gradually, Speedo began to accept Lucas's presence, emerging from the brush when he arrived, though his movements remained slow but steady. Everything seemed to be going well until one overcast afternoon when Lucas found the enclosure empty. The food from the night before lay untouched. His heart raced as he scanned the area. Speedo had never wandered far, but something must have changed. Following faint paw prints, Lucas ventured deeper into the reserve, reaching areas less frequently visited. The terrain grew rockier, and the forest thickened around him. He softly called out Speedo's name, his voice nearly drowned by the wind. Static crackled from his walkie-talkie. The signal was weak this far from the base. Then he heard it, a yowl, sharp and distressed, echoing off the trees, followed by low growls. Lucas broke into a run, pushing through a patch of tall grass until he reached the scene. There was Speedo, backed against a small rock outcrop, his frail figure tense and fur bristling. Surrounding him was a pack of wolves, 5, maybe 6, eyes locked onto the old Bobcat, their movements calculated and hungry. Occasionally, wild packs roamed the outskirts of the sanctuary, especially during winter when food was scarce. This time, a group must have wandered closer, either out of hunger or curiosity. Lucas realized he couldn't wait for help. The reserve center was over 10 kilometers away, and by the time assistance arrived, it could be too late. Without a second thought, he grabbed the flare gun from his pack, a precaution he always carried, and fired a bright red flare into the sky. The wolves flinched at the sudden light and noise, but didn't retreat. Lucas started shouting, waving his arms to create a barrier between the wolves and Speedo, his old Bobcat. He picked up a thick branch and slammed it against the ground, escalating the standoff as the wolves growled louder. Speedo crouched low, his breath quickening. Lucas stepped forward with purpose, keeping his gaze steady and his back straight. One of the younger wolves suddenly lunged, but the apparent alpha swiftly pulled it back, clearly showing they were cautious yet not ready to leave. In a moment of uncertainty, Lucas reached into his bag and pulled out a canister of bear spray, just in case. The air was thick with tension. One wrong move could spark chaos. Yet Lucas held his ground, his voice steady. Finally, the lead wolf emitted a low snarl and turned away, leading the pack in retreat. They glanced back, lingering for a moment before disappearing into the trees. Only when the last gray shadow faded did Lucas drop his stick and kneel beside Speedo, who was trembling and breathing heavily. He gently ran his hands along the Bobcat's body, checking for injuries. Miraculously, there were no serious wounds, just a few scrapes, likely from the rocky terrain during his escape. "You gave me a real scare, old boy," Lucas murmured, resting his forehead against Speedo's. "Let's get you home." Speedo didn't have the strength to walk on his own. Lucas fashioned a sling from his jacket to support him, and together they began the slow trek back. The sky had darkened, and the first stars were starting to appear. It took them nearly 2 hours, during which Lucas kept speaking in a soothing tone, telling Speedo stories and sharing calming breaths. Once they reached the cabin, Lucas radioed the reserve center, and a vet named Marcus arrived shortly after with fluids, food, and medical supplies. That night, Speedo settled in a warm spot near the cabin, where Lucas could keep a watchful eye on him. The thick log walls provided shelter, as the soft rustle of the wind outside served as a gentle backdrop to their quiet night. The soft creak of the trees accompanied the warm light from a small oil lamp, casting a gentle glow across the room. Lucas sat beside Speedo, the Bobcat, nestled in a wool blanket, sipping coffee that had long turned cold. His eyes remained mostly on Speedo, whose chest rose and fell steadily, ears twitching occasionally as if still aware, even in sleep. Around midnight, Speedo stirred, shifting on the straw-lined bedding. His eyes opened slightly, cloudy yet alert, and he pressed his head into Lucas's palm. This simple gesture spoke volumes about trust. Lucas whispered Speedo's name softly, and the Bobcat let out a quiet breath before dozing off again, curling up, which created a relaxed, cozy atmosphere. The warmth from the heating panel enveloped them, while the lingering scent of pine on Speedo's fur added to the feeling of safety that both man and beast shared on that quiet night. Lucas didn't sleep much, focusing instead on jotting notes, adjusting Speedo's position when needed, and listening for any sounds that might suggest trouble. It felt as if the day's events had left lingering marks on his mind. But as morning arrived, so did a rare stillness outside. Frost crept along the cabin windows, and the forest sparkled under a delicate layer of silver. Speedo remained at rest, his breathing deeper and more stable now. Lucas took a brief moment to lean back in his chair, allowing the gentle sounds of the waking forest to calm his thoughts. In the coming days, the team at Clearwater worked hard to enhance security measures. They reinforced the fencing all along the sanctuary's outer perimeter, especially at the spot where Speedo had once wandered out. New high-resolution motion-activated cameras were installed, feeding directly into the reserve's monitoring system. Each major route through the wilderness was carefully mapped and checked. Lucas was hands-on in the process. He climbed trees to set up extra solar-powered lights, and positioned scent deterrents in risk-prone areas to keep wild predators at bay. Taking it a step further, he designed a motion sensor system for Speedo's enclosure that connected directly to his phone and the ranger office. If anything, be it human or animal, came near, Lucas would be informed. The system even included speakers that could emit loud noises or human voices if necessary. In a thoughtful touch, Lucas programmed one of the audio triggers to his own voice, saying, "Back off," just in case wolves approached. Speedo's journey took a positive turn, reminding us that even after hardship, recovery is possible. Despite the challenges he faced, Speedo began to show signs of improvement. Perhaps it was the rush of adrenaline, the instinct to survive, or simply the comfort of knowing he wasn't alone. Lucas observed how Speedo started to eat more vigorously, not just nibbling but fully enjoying the rabbit and fish provided daily. Soon Speedo was standing up when Lucas arrived, and occasionally he would pace near the gate for a moment before settling down, resting his head on his paws while watching Lucas at work. By the end of the week, Speedo surprised everyone. He climbed a small hill inside his enclosure, a feat he hadn't attempted in months. As he stood at the top, his tail flicking with anticipation, he watched the sunrise filter through the pine trees, his fur shining in the golden light. Lucas spotted him from the cabin porch and couldn't resist snapping a photo, a quiet keepsake of this remarkable transformation. Word of Speedo's recovery quickly spread beyond the walls of Clearwater. Within days, emails and phone calls from sanctuaries, wildlife foundations, and even universities in Canada poured in, all eager to learn more about the methods used for his rescue and rehabilitation. Lucas found himself fielding more inquiries than usual, but he took pride in sharing their story. Maplewood Zoo sent a heartfelt letter, signed by every senior staff member, expressing their gratitude for adopting Speedo and complimenting Lucas for his swift actions during the rescue. Along with the letter came an old photograph of a younger Speedo, standing tall on a rock in his original enclosure, his eyes bright and ears perked, still unaccustomed to life behind glass. Lucas preserved this photo in a small wooden frame and hung it near Speedo's shelter, adding a label that read, "Still Wild." Though everyone understood that Speedo's time was limited, he would spend his remaining years in tranquility, surrounded by the scents of the forest, fresh snow, and plenty of space to roam freely. The noise of city life would be a thing of the past, replaced by the gentle sounds of birds singing, leaves rustling, and the occasional curious squirrel. Lucas maintained his routine, checking on Speedo multiple times a day, ensuring his comfort and well-being. Sometimes he would bring a folding chair and sit quietly outside the enclosure. Speedo, the creature nearby, would lie by the fence, not too close, but close enough to listen. They didn't need words to communicate. Their bond was built on trust, survival, and genuine respect. Each evening, as the sky turned a deep blue and the air cooled into the gentle calm of the northern night, a familiar figure would stroll along the forest trail. Lucas walked slowly, with his hands tucked into his jacket, the sound of gravel crunching softly under his boots. The wind whispered through the treetops, and the final rays of sunlight illuminated the ground. Speedo would be waiting, sometimes curled up in a ball, and at other times sitting up straight, ears perked towards the path. Lucas would take his usual spot just outside the fence and engage in quiet conversation. He would share details about his day, how the generator was malfunctioning, how the pine marten tried to sneak some food again, and how the forecast predicted snow by the weekend. At times, he brought a book to read aloud or simply sat in silence, watching as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky. Speedo would listen intently, his tail flicking gently as he settled into a relaxed rhythm. In that moment, he felt at home, not in the wild where dangers lurked, yet not confined behind bars either. He existed in a space that was safe, seen, and respected. For Lucas, every night spent along that trail served as a quiet promise. No matter how many years went by or how far humans drifted from nature, there would always be a place for beings like Speedo and someone willing to walk alongside them.